floor.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I know that you're all ready to go, but I just couldn't allow us to adjourn without an adequate response to the Shadow Minister of Finance's remarks. To start off with, though, in reply to the concerns that the opposition is presenting pertaining to generic drugs, this is what I'm going to say.
Well, I've just...
No, I'm not.
I've
Mr. Speaker,
I've just said that the rate stopped now, and I don't want to hear any more about it. You'll have to change gear. You're going to have to change gear.
Right.
I've just made a ruling.
No problem, no problem.
Thank you.
I'm going to change gear. Yeah, I'm going to change gear. In response to the Shadow Minister of Finance, because he used an analogy of a good caring father. Absolutely hysterical. Funny, that analogy, Mr. Speaker. Because we know that the opposition's father, when they were government, were absolutely neglectful of the entire family. Now we acknowledge that that father might have been a great father for his 3 children, but what happened to the other 7 stepchildren that he had? What happened there? Because I know that you did well in protecting the interests of your children, but when it was time for your stepfather to move into the retirement home, and one of the stepchildren took over, the stepchild realized, you know, Mr. Speaker, that during the whole period of being in that household, what appeared to be glittery was not gold. Because the 3 of his children always had food to eat, always had proper education, always had the best room. And so when the opportunity came for the stepchildren to now become adults and rule the household, we had to repair the breach. We had to repair the breach. Now, just last week, we had what, on our side, we could consider to be the archetype of the stepfather. And he spoke at a Caribbean journal, speaking on the lines of, we in Bermuda should not be connected to CARICOM and the Caribbean. My point is this, to the people of Bermuda, to that stepfather's remarks, don't do as he says, do as he does. While stepfather, and this is a reflection of the mindset from then to today, while stepfather tries to encourage the stepchildren not to return home to the original father, stepfather's down there making big food, big money. And I took offense to it because I previously have served as the head of CARICOM Affairs. And I know the benefit, the cultural and economic benefit that stepfather had, that relationship that stepfather has had for umpteen years. And you know why stepfather has that economic benefit? Because of the cultural relationships that they have. So let's not be mistaken. The reason why many in Bermuda may not benefit from economic relations with the Caribbean is because we don't have the direct cultural relations. As a man thinketh, he becometh. Economics flows from culture. So how dare anyone, whether they think that the big cat stepfather, the big tree, whatever, come and try and convince our people that we do not have a right or shouldn't have a desire to connect with our own. Don't we realize that everyone in Bermuda, white and black, has some type of ties to the Caribbean? But again, the audacity, the arrogance to get up in a foreign newspaper and try to convince our people. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Sir David Gibbons, your boss. Hey. Yeah, point me
Mr.
out.
Sir, point of order.
Yeah.
Yes, what is your point of order?
That honorable member needs to withdraw that comment. That gentleman is certainly not my boss, and certainly not Bermuda's boss. I mean, that was just clearly wrong.
I think the honorable member is aware of that.
I will withdraw that comment, Mr. Speaker. Absolutely. But as Bob Marley says, you know what they say about the big tree. Right, you know what they say about the big tree. It will get cut down by the small axe. Okay? And so maybe not the boss directly, but as I said previously in a motion to adjourn, the big cat. And as I said earlier today to one of my opposition colleagues, I said, hey, I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for the utterances of your stalwarts. It's really helping us out politically. Now, Ms. Jackson, the honorable member, made a comment. She asked the question, has our conditions improved since 1998? And everyone on this side of the House of Opposition said, no. But when I look at it, as a person who lives a simple life, my condition hasn't improved or decreased since 1998. But I could look on the same side of the aisle and look at my colleagues and say, well, let me ask you the question. Let me ask them the question, Mr. Speaker. Has your economic condition improved since 1998? No? Okay. Yeah. See,
you wish to continue? I thought you...
Mr. Speaker, you see the reaction, right? Right? Because I just put it out there to prick their conscience because they're being hypocrites.
Well, Mr. Speaker, you'll have to withdraw that remark. None of us are on our feet, and he asked the question and we answered.
Mr. Bean.
Oh, misleading?
You have to withdraw that and apologize, because that's insulting language to members of the House.
All right.
You have to apologize and withdraw.
I withdraw that comment. I can't say hypocrites. I'm misleading the House.
Well, do you wish to continue? Because
yes,
that is not the way to apologize to the
All right, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, please accept my apology and I withdraw that comment.
That's better.
Okay.
Carry on.
But in terms of benefiting since 1998 and benefiting from our relationship with the CARICOM, I can recall just a few months ago, Mr. Speaker, an IPO in the Bahamas that netted $65 million. And I'm not going to call no names. But families on this side of the House, interests on this side of the House, benefited from it. Benefited from the Caribbean. Benefited from business. Benefited from functioning in the Caribbean from Bermuda under a PLP government. So all this scaremongering is totally unnecessary and the people will look through it. Question. In terms of charities and NGOs, because I see that the opposition is jumping on the emotionalism surrounding charities closing down or having to shut their doors. They put an emphasis, the opposition, Mr. Speaker, on government contributions. But isn't a charity inherently a non-governmental institution? Shouldn't charities not only be dependent on funding from the government, which is supposed to supplement, I would think, but also look for support from the private sector? But then they say that the funding from the private sector is dried up. Is that the government's fault? I ask again. Oh, it is? Okay. I'm glad you bit on that bait. It's the government's fault that the private sector has reduced their contributions to the third sector of charities. It's the government's fault. I think that the public can actually deduce what's happening, Mr. Speaker. All right? They're trying to put all the blame on our government. even when the private sector have taken risk and lost since 1997 or 1999, with all your funny financial sophisticated mechanisms, monopoly games, was that the government's fault? Was it the government's fault that we had to assist the Butterfield Bank? No. No. So what's with the politics? That's what I want to know. Now, this is my point. I understand the game that they're playing. And quite frankly, quite frankly, like, it can be said that we presented them the space to play this game. It can be said that. But the thing about it is, what I do know is if we had $100 million worth of that.
I just want to know who you're speaking.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
yes. Don't be distracted.
No, I'm not.
Look at me so that I know you're talking to me.
Okay. What I do know is in this game is if we had $100 million debt instead of $1 billion, the opposition would be saying the same thing. I suspect that if we had $10 worth of debt, the opposition would be saying the same thing. Because it's politics. That's the nature of politics. That's what they'll probably be doing. And I understand it. But the reality is, in February, they're getting up to the publicly and saying, listen, it's too much spending. The government needs to make cuts, this and that. Now, our Minister of Finance got up and said, listen, we're going to look to reduce our spending by $150 million. And subsequently was set about that task of reducing our spending, which inevitably leads to some cuts. And they know that. The opposition know that. So in February, while they're saying, listen, you need to make cuts, as soon as the cuts are made, they're saying, hey, you're making cuts. And you're hurting the teacher, and you're hurting this person, you're hurting that person. It's an emotional game that they're playing, Mr. Speaker. It's politics. And I understand it. But don't be fooled. Like I said before, the spending, the $1 billion in spending, Mr. Speaker, really can be said to be a reaction or the effect of 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 years of neglect by that evil stepfather. That evil stepfather. Now, maybe we didn't have to spend as much, but obviously we had to spend because we had been marginalized and neglected.
You ought to, let's be a little measured with the kind of language that we use. You're referring to a member of the public, and you said evil. And we shouldn't really.
But, Mr. Speaker,
so you're parliamentarian.
I'm not speaking on no one in particular, Mr. Speaker.
Well,
I'm using the analogy of the opposition finance spokesman. I'm talking about the father of his house.
Do be careful, please.
All right.
If you want to continue your speech.
I can, Mr. Speaker. All my point is that we know that it's election season. The opposition stood up on the motion to adjourn to play this political game with us and to try and drive home this emotionalism within the consciousness of our people. But let me show you something. Not you, Mr. Speaker, but let me remind the opposition something. Okay? Who they think they're trying to attach that emotionalism to, which is basically the working man, the poor man, the sufferer. This is something that they have to recognize. That while they feel that this is the right environment to talk about it because it's a so-called recession, for the poor man, for poverty, for the average worker in Bermuda, there's no such thing as a recession. There's no such thing. When you're poor, when you're struggling, you're struggling. When things were good in 2005, 2004, people were still struggling. So our people who they think that they're trying to emotionally attract, I'm not going to buy into that. Because suffering is suffering. Who they're really trying to send that towards to is the middle class who will be impacted more. But it's all games, Mr. Speaker. And I'm here to call them out on it. And I apologize for calling people and having to withdraw this and that. And I will learn to speak in a more cordial manner in the future. But I'm not going to tolerate politics. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.